everyone. Today let's take a look at point of view. When we talk about point of view, we're going to look at standard RL 4.6, which states compare and contrast the point of view from which different stories are narrated, including the difference between first and third person narrations. So with this lesson for today, we're going to look at components of this standard. First, we're going to compare and contrast the different point of views authors can use. And by the end of this lesson, you're going to be able to describe the differences between first and third person narrations. Let's get started. First, let's look at the definition. What is point of view? So generally speaking, point of view is the angle of considering things, which shows us the opinion or feelings of the individuals involved in a situation. That's a good definition, but we need to tweak it a little bit or revise it a little bit because we want to talk about point of view in regards to the texts we read or the stories we read. So in literature, point of view is the mode of narration that an author employs or uses to tell a story. The author needs to decide who will be the narrator. So look at the top of my anchor chart and you'll see I drew a little owl and he's saying, who is telling the story? So writers choose a point of view to tell the story, knowing that their choice will affect how the story is told. So this is a pretty big choice authors have to make. They have to decide who will tell the story, who will be the narrator, and this choice will directly impact how the story is told. So let's take a closer look at that word narrator. Who is a narrator? Well, a narrator is a person who tells a story to an audience. When an author decides on who will tell the story, they decide what point of view they will use. And authors have three choices when determining point of view: first person, second person, and third person point of view. How can readers determine which point of view is used? Well, readers will analyze the pronouns used. What are pronouns? Pronouns are words that replace nouns. Some examples of pronouns are he, she, it, they, them, you. All those words are pronouns. Readers can decipher which point of view is used by looking at the pronouns in the text. Be careful though. When looking for pronoun clues, do not look at pronouns used in dialogue. What is dialogue? Dialogue is a conversation between two or more characters, and in a text, it's going to be written conversation. So the way in which you're going to be able to pinpoint dialogue in a text is that you're going to look for it being enclosed in quotation marks. So again, you may see pronouns being used in dialogue, but you're not going to use those pronoun clues to help you decipher which point of view is being used by the author. Each point of view has its own advantages and disadvantages. So let's go through each one of our different point of views to determine the advantages and disadvantages of each. Let's start with first person point of view. That's at the top of our anchor chart. We use the pronouns I, we, or me, and the story is told by the main character. So again, our pronoun clues are I, we, me, and the story is told by one character, and this character is usually the main character. I say usually because it does not always have to be that way, but it usually is. There are some advantages. Let's look at the advantage at that part of the anchor chart. In first person, the reader is inside the main character's head, so we can tell what he or she is thinking or feeling. So this point of view is effective in giving a sense of closeness to one character. We really get to know that one character really well. The reader can determine that character's perspective since he or she is able to closely analyze the thoughts and feelings of that character. Let's look at perspective. What am I talking about here? Well, perspective is how a person sees something. It's their attitude towards something in particular. So in first person, we get to really know that one character's perspective because we can closely analyze their thoughts and feelings within a text. There is a disadvantage though. So the reader may not truly understand the other characters in the text. Since this story is told only through the eyes of one character, the reader is not able to truly understand the other characters' perspectives. So you get to really know one character, but the other characters you don't know as well. So you really can't determine their perspective as well as that one character. Now let's jump to second person. That's in the middle of the anchor chart. And here we use the pronouns you, your, and yours. The author talks directly to the reader, and they make you part of the story. So this point of view pulls the reader right into the story. Authors often find it difficult to write fiction texts using second-person point of view. And for this reason, we will rarely see it used in the text we look at this year. We solely want to focus on first and third. So second-person point of view is used primarily in technical writing pieces in which the author gives directions about how to do something. But again, for today's purposes in our lesson, we're really going to focus on first and third person. So let's look at third person now. That's at the bottom of my anchor chart. And it says third person uses the pronouns he, she, they, etc. And the narrator is not a character in the story. Let's tackle this a little bit further. So the pronouns, I gave you some, but there's a plethora of pronouns used for third person. He, him, his, she, her, they, their, them. There's many of them. You will also see characters' names being used a lot. The story is told by an outsider, not by a character within the story. The narrator, therefore, is more distant, telling us about the story rather than playing a major part in it. Now, this has its advantages. Let's look at that. Readers have an objective view of the characters and events in the story. Information can be given to the reader about every character and situation or event. It's objective because the story is not being influenced by one character's feelings or opinions. So you really get to see the big picture and make your own judgment calls. There are some disadvantages, though. The reader is not completely inside any of the characters' heads. So the reader may not truly understand one character's perspective because the reader is not given exclusive access to one character's thoughts and feelings. We are not in one character's head to really understand his or her perspective. So that's the difference I was talking about between first and third person. In first person, you really get to know that one character really well because you're inside their head. But in third person point of view, since an outsider is telling the story, you're not in one character's head. So you don't really get that closeness with one particular character. Well, there you have it. That's point of view. When you're reading text, use your pronoun clues to determine what point of view is being utilized by the author, and then think about the advantages and disadvantages of both. And this will help you explain how the story is impacted by the point of view chosen by the author. All right, thank you so much for learning with me today. Bye.